Good evening. Whew. It's been such a beautiful day, and we just really appreciate y'all being here with us. We're going to open up our closing session with a song, of course. If you haven't caught on, this is kind of what we do. We love to sing. And it's important that we sing because when we sing together, it's scientifically proven that our breaths align and that our heartbeats align. And in a world that tries to isolate and divide us, being together like this in such an intimate way is such a beautiful, incredible act of resistance and care. And so the song we're going to share is actually a song that people across the country sing every night at 7 p.m. And it's a song that was written by a couple members of our group, Songs in the Key of Resistance, and children that have been detained at Dilley Detention Facility in Texas. Yes, there is a facility that houses kidnapped children in Texas. And so a couple of our song leaders joined a delegation, a 40-mile march to this facility, and sat with the children there and asked the children, what do you want people outside of the walls to know? And one of the little girls, her name is Valencia, who is from Venezuela, she said that she thinks about the ocean in her home country of Venezuela, and she wants the people to know that they are as strong as the waves of the sea. And so we're going to sing this song because we told these children that we would sing this song and spread it in communities outside of the walls. We're going to sing these songs for our immigrant siblings. We're going to sing these songs for people who are behind bars, in prison, incarcerated. We're going to sing these songs for people who are trapped by borders, both physical and the borders of our own hearts. And so the lyrics are, I sing from here, and you sing from there. Together we'll sing down the walls everywhere. With love in our hearts. Like the waves of the sea. Together we'll sing until everyone's free. Y'all got this. I sing from here.
I sing from here,
And you sing from there.
and you sing from there.
Together we'll sing down the walls everywhere.
Together we'll sing down the walls everywhere.
With love in our hearts like the waves of the sea.
With love in our hearts like the waves of the sea.
Together we'll sing until everyone's free.
Together we'll sing until everyone's free.
Together.
I sing from here,
and you sing.
You sing from there.
And together
we'll sing down the walls everywhere.
With love in our hearts.
Love in our hearts.
Like the waves of the
waves
sea.
of the sea.
Together we'll sing.
Together we'll sing
Until everyone's free.
Everyone's free.
I sing from here.
I sing from here.
And you sing from there.
And you sing from there.
Together we'll sing.
Together we'll sing
Down the walls everywhere.
Everywhere.
Love in our hearts.
Love in our hearts.
Like the waves of the sea.
Waves of the sea.
Together we'll sing.
Together we'll sing until everyone's free.
Last time.
I sing from here and you sing from there. Together we'll sing down the walls everywhere. With love in our hearts like the waves of the sea. Together we'll sing until everyone's free.
So, Jason, would you?
I can feel the love of Pastor Peter in here. The greatest of all. I went to Hawaii, I guess, about 2 weeks ago, and it was the greatest experience I've experienced in a long time, with so much family and so much love. I didn't get to do any tourist kind of things. I spent time in the villages with the family. This one there was their family reunion. And when I returned back here, I ran into chaos. We remember that big rain we had the past Saturday? Well, we got 4 inches within 45 minutes, and it flooded my basement. The water came through there, and I lost stuff. I had just got a pool done, and it went over my pool, and all this chaos. And when before that, I had got word when I was in Hawaii that my aunt passed away, so I was already dealing with the grief of that, come back to this, then dealing with that. And so I'm like, all right, God, there's possibly no more I can take right now. It's just an overload of stuff. And so Monday, I'm just like, well, I'm going to call the insurance company. I'm going to be good, call them. They tell me I wasn't covered. It's a different kind of coverage that I was supposed to have. So I'm like, I took it, I swallowed it, and it didn't hit me until my wife asked me, hey, should I go down there and start writing down everything we had? And I had to tell her that we're not covered. And the washer and dryer wasn't working. The hot water tank wasn't working because the water had went over that, and the furnace. And so as I went and ordered a dumpster. So I'm praying as I'm in the basement cleaning out everything. And I'm not a sentimental kind of person, anything like that, but I lost my mom's stuff. So it really grabbed my heart, and I'm just like, God, this is just a lot on me at this time. And I don't know if I can handle this. But I was reminded of how many people are really going through things and they don't have hope. I have the money to recover all. I have friends who call me. They can give resources. But there's so many people who don't have anything. And so as I was in my sad mode, I began to give God thanks in the midst of chaos. And I think about that in this world, how much we're going through. And it seems like we can leave from one happy place and into a stage of chaos. And it seems like when you're getting it from this side, you go to this side and it come from this side. And you go to this side and it's coming from, and it seems like you're just overwhelmed. But in the midst of that, if you can find a song, and that's what I was thinking about when I was sitting there, because I had to take a cold shower, and that wasn't great for me. But, I was thinking when I was sitting there with no air conditioning, no hot water tank at home, lost everything, just back there, singing about love. And I just began to think, wow, the love that flows in here from heart to breath to breath. So many people from diverse backgrounds in the midst of chaos. And I don't know if anybody know it. We're in a chaotic world right now. But love still abides. Love still overcomes. And I'm looking upon it. So I'm here to give a welcome. I'm telling you, thank you. Not welcome for coming here. Thank you all for your love. Thank you for being that beacon of hope. Thank you for being that strength that somebody in this room needed tonight. So I hope you all come back again. Thank you so much for choosing this place. We love you all so much.
As a grounding practice before we jump fully into this time I want to invite us all into a time of breath where we're going to find a way to center ourselves, let our breath be that thing that unites us and the peace that allows us to enter into the fullness of our hearts for what we can be open to experiencing this evening and beyond. So if you'll go ahead, feet firm on the floor, go ahead and set up nice and straight. We're going to do 3 breaths. I'm going to guide you through it. The first 2 breaths, you're going to do in a good deep in-breath, hold it, and then let a good strong, just like, let that breath just flow from you. That's going to be the first 2 breaths. The third breath, I want you to breathe, and I want you to breathe out heavily when you breathe out. But as much as you are breathing out, don't focus so much on what's coming out of your mouth, but I want you to have ears to hear what your neighbors and your friends are doing, and let that be something that joins us together, all right? So if it helps you to be centered in this, I invite you to close your eyes if you feel so comfortable. And we're going to take a deep breath in. Hold it, and let that breath out. A good deep breath in. Hold it, and let that breath out. And the last one, really deep. Deep breath in. Hold it, and really let that breath out. Friends, did you hear that? You took a breath as one. You are one. Many breaths, but one voice. And we're strengthened and united by that work that we do collectively here and out there.
And so thank you for continuing this journey with us that started with a small group of people gathered, some who helped organize this event, others who have been supporting from across the country after holding their own events and coming here to be with us. And then we had a People's Resource Fair that brought together different services and organizations who are doing the good work. And then we just had some breakout sessions this afternoon talking about faith and belonging and the attacks on our unhoused family and neighbors. And then we had dinner together. That was so beautiful. And now we're coming to a close. And so I know we're a bit behind, and I wanted to bring up our dear friends, Megan and Jess, to get us into this next piece of our closing.
While they're making their way up here, I want you all to take a moment and look behind you. Up on the rail is hanging that one centerpiece that ran down the center of our table, and all of your names that have been tied to that are the voices of Alton. They're the voices of our friends who have come in to support the work that we are doing here. Friends, that is one movement with many voices, all gathered for the same purpose, united together in work. You made that happen, and we give you thanks.
It is my pleasure to introduce Jess Banner to my right here. If you don't know Jess, you're really missing out, and I'm glad you get to know Jess. Both, I do know about that. I've gotten the chance to work with Jess for a bit through some collaborative work, trying to help our friends on the street. Jess is a peer recovery specialist with Chestnut Health Systems, and so yes, give it up. And what we're going to watch for the next 12 minutes is a bit of Jess's story. And I'm going to let the story speak for itself, and then we're going to come back up and have a little bit of a conversation afterward. Does that sound good? Can we give some love to Jess? I don't know who's in charge of starting it. Here it close. We can't hear it. It's a good picture, though. Another good picture, but no sound. Here we go.
So my life story,
This is just building the suspense.
started actually pretty traumatically. I was kidnapped twice before the age of 3. I was gone for 9 months. I was kidnapped by my biological father, but it was in such a violent and terrible way that I still remember the experience today. And by the time the FBI found me on a mountain with no electricity and no running water, the next memory I have is being in the courtroom, and my mom had married a new man. And unfortunately, that man turned out to be the devil, because as soon as I got back into her custody, my stepdad started sexually abusing me from the age of 4 until I left home when I was 15. And so I started using substances at the age of 9 because it was so hard to deal with the reality that I was living in. I mean, it was every single day until I could finally get out of there. And so that's how I started using hard drugs by the age of 15. I started with cocaine, and it just kind of changed over time with different drugs, substituting one for another. And so by the time I was 33, I was terribly addicted to opioids, and I had found myself in this domestic violent relationship. My abusive partner had broken into a house I was staying at and stabbed me and beat me and left me for dead in a bathtub, and that started my experience with homelessness. I was in several different domestic violence shelters, and because I had a substance problem, I was kicked out of all of those places. I ended up wrecking my car. I was in 2 accidents in one day. I don't remember any of them because once that attack happened, my drug use went off the rails, and I found myself homeless. And then I didn't have a car, and that's what started the journey. There just wasn't enough resources in Southern Illinois, and I had heard about a place in Chicago that would take you any day of the week, 24/7, and so that's how I jumped a train and how I ended up in Chicago. What I wish people understood, I think, the most about being homeless is that it's not a choice. Nobody really wakes up one day and says, you know, I'm gonna go outside and I'm gonna live.
All these eyes on me right now, and like all of this compassion, and like I used to crave this when I lived here, like just being treated like I was still a human. People were just so mean. There's steps that go up to the train. And one night I was like so tired and just like couldn't find anywhere to like good. So I got up underneath like the stairs because it was raining and I was like puddled. And I woke up to this guy pissing on me, and he thought it was like the funniest thing in the world. And I'm like, what is wrong with people? Like, why would you do that? On Trumbull in Chicago, that gang tried to blow me up with fireworks. They would throw them at me, and they would laugh, and then they would try to get closer, and they would throw them underneath me and just laugh. And I remember thinking how these dogs that lived right here had such a better life than I had.
This is where it was?
This is the bushes. There were more right here. They cleaned all this up because all of this fence had nothing but weed. You couldn't see through the fence. There was just so much greenery. And truly, after I left, they annihilated all of it. So there used to be bushes right here. And then the kids in the morning would come through the planetarium. Oh my God, that's so crazy. So that's when I knew it was like time to go because you could hear the kids playing. But these were all obviously grown in. And I just slept in the mulch. You would just climb back. I called this home for like 3 months. And I didn't have blankets or anything, so it was just finding where you could go. Sometimes it was closer to the fence, sometimes not. This is it. And I could hear the kids playing. It was like, all right, gotta go before they catch me. And I'd peek out, and I'd look, and I'd be like, okay. And just walk like I was just walking down the thing. I walk this every day. Walk to the dead spots, walk. And then I would just pee in people's yards and in the alleys, and it's humiliating.
I don't think I really had time to even think. It was just like, I got to figure out how to, do stuff up here. It was just a lot of starting of just walking around, learning where things were, running into other people, asking other people questions. By that point, you just didn't even think about it anymore. It was just like survive. I used to be the person who was taught to fear people that were homeless. They were scary, they were dangerous, and until I experienced it, I realized that I had all the wrong information, and I had been moving my whole life in a way I wish I didn't move.
But the Mexican restaurant that we're gonna go to is a place that would take my change. So when I panhandle and people would give you quarters or whatever change they had, whenever I felt like I had enough, I would go into this Mexican restaurant and they would just always give me dollar bills. Like they never treated me bad. They never were like, no, get out of here. Like they were truly the only people that treated me like a human. They were just the most kind family. They lived upstairs from their restaurant. Like if people didn't come to get the to-go food, they would offer it to you. Like they were just so kind. And I have thought about them people that were not the kindest to come here and to be made feel human. And I remember they have a son, and one day he didn't know me, and they weren't like necessarily close, and he was like, he did not want to do that. And his dad came down, he's like, no, do it. Just do it. It's not a big deal. Just do it. And it's sad, that's the only kindness I can recall like that. We were walking in, and this young lady was at the cashier thing, and I said, hey, she said, here to go. I said, actually, I just have a random question. And she said, what's that? And I was like, well, did you guys own this in 2019? And she kind of said yes and then no. And she's like, well, my family did, but then we closed down in like 2020 when COVID hit, and we've been actually closed for a while, and they just reopened, and they renamed it and did a little redecorating because it wasn't this bright in here, color-wise. And I was like, well, I just want to say, like, I used to come in here when I was homeless, and I just wanted to thank you guys so much. And she was like, well, my dad and my mom are still here. And I was like, would you mind to go getting them? I would love just to be able to tell them thank you. So she went and got them and came out, and she told him in Spanish what I had said. And then he said, I remember you. And I was like, oh my God, you do? He was like, yeah. And we were all of us. They were tearing, I was tearing, and I was like, just thank you so much for treating me like a human in a time that no one would. And thank you for taking my change, and they never told me no. I mean, it's really nice to have people like that in this world. And so I started going to therapy. I've been in therapy. I went twice a week for the first year. I'm still in weekly therapy all these years later. It's been the best tool that's ever happened to me. Recovery is not like an overnight solution. There's time. You got to learn how to fail, and you got to learn how to get back up. Because the greatest gift today is that I get to work with the unhoused community, and I get to bring, hopefully, to them what I wish I would have had, and that was just humans being human to somebody, and looking people in their face and making them know that they're loved and they're important and they matter.
Being kind is free, and we don't have to treat people bad when they're already at their worst days, you know. And the way people treated me really impacted who I was, what I thought about myself, what I thought I deserved in life. And just having people be mean to you doesn't help anything. And so I just hope that people moving forward could maybe just think a little bit outside the box and stop saying people are lazy or it's this or it's that. It has nothing to do with those things. It's usually circumstances and trauma that gets people to being unhoused.
What did that feel like?
A little. I could probably talk loud enough for everybody. Okay. I'm sorry. That was very overwhelming, in the best way possible. I don't know how else to say that. Yeah, it was, I don't say I'm so overwhelmed. I wasn't expecting that reaction, I guess. So, yeah.
Can we use one of these other microphones up here? Okay. Thanks for showing Jess love. Thank you for being vulnerable enough to share that story with us.
You know, I say this often anytime I really get a chance. Being homeless has made me a better human. I might not look it, but I'm pretty old. Anyways, you know, but just, you know, it's kind of the same today, but just I had a lot of wrong education. You know, we just didn't have conversations back then. You know, there was no talks about what a drug addict is. It was like, you're choosing to do this, and like, what's wrong with you, and why can't you stop? And, you know, it's just, I thank God actually every day for that experience, an experience that I vividly can remember laying in those bushes and saying to God, man, was I really a crappy person my entire life? Like, did I really do something so bad in this world that this is what I deserve? And people make you feel like that. And so I didn't know this career path was going to be possible. I didn't know all this garbage I had been through was going to end up being one of the most superpower that I have today. I'm so grateful that I get to show up for my friends that are currently experiencing homelessness. And, you know, my hope is that I bring them what I really wish I would have had. And it's really just looking someone in the face and saying, you matter. You don't have to have the solution. You don't have to give money. There's all kinds of things. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, that's okay. But being kind truly is free.
Yeah, that was something that I took from that. It's going to ring in my ears forever. But I also heard you saying, survive, 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 survive. And I'm looking around at these flags that we have around here, that I need you to survive, we need to organize. And I think that's the message, is that we want people to survive. What does it mean? How can we make that happen, the survival revival? So that was the first time you went back to Chicago in 7 years? What did it feel like leading up to that?
Oh, it's been a journey. You know, I recently had someone ask me, like, oh, why did we have to go all the way to Chicago to show somebody's homelessness experience? And I thought, stay tuned, come and see the documentary. No, I'm just joking. But what I said to him is to understand, like, I went up to Chicago because at that time there was only 2 treatment centers here that had 6-month to a year waiting lists unless you knew somebody. And then you couldn't have certain conditions to get treatment. So I heard about this place in Chicago called Haymarket, and you could go 24/7, 365 days a week. And so I panhandled enough money to get on the train, and that's how I ended up in Chicago. And you know, I really only have Chicago street homeless to really compare things to, but being on houses, I think we all share the same thing. I mean, brokenness, loneliness, not feeling like we deserve anything in life, and it's just the devil lying. It's really what it is. And so I had been asked by Chestnut a few times if I would go back up there for some trainings pretty early on in my career, and I was like, not ready. Like, because what I don't know if people do understand about Chicago is there's dope on every single corner, everywhere you look on the west side of Chicago. I no longer needed a dealer. I no longer needed a phone. I no longer needed it. It was so accessible. And you know, recovery is a journey. It's a lifelong journey. There's no cure for this. It's up to me to maintain what I have and to hopefully give it away to other people. And so I knew that I worked with a supervisor who had lived experience, which really, really helped early in my career, because he understood when I said, not right ready, just not quite ready. But I wanted to. I've always wanted to go back. That Mexican restaurant, I got to tell you, it was one of the most beautiful, special. We didn't get it on film just because there were 7 of us in the car, and I was like, I don't even know if they still own it. Like, let me just run in and like even check it out. And I'm really actually grateful it happened that way, because I didn't do it for film. I never thought in my whole life that I would go back in this way up to Chicago and share it. So it was a very special and authentic moment, and it just really has to show you, this family, all they did was take my change and looked me in the face and said, have a great day. Come back again. Here, I got some to-go food. Do you want some? That kindness, out of all my time being homelessness, I wanted to go back there, because it's humans like that that make our world a better place to live.
So we have just a few more minutes together up here. If there's one thing that you want to share with the rest of this crew, this captivated audience, about how to engage folks who are on the street, what does it look like? What does kindness look like? I know we heard it through the Mexican restaurant, but I heard in your documentary that you would have craved this attention when you were on the street. Yeah, can you speak to that a little bit?
I would just say, don't look the other way. Don't look at somebody and be like they don't actually exist because they're below me, because they chose to be out here. They're choosing not to get help. Like, what? So I would just say, if people do so many amazing things that aren't seen every day, like people give me socks to give out, or, there's all kinds of ways that we can help people. It doesn't have to be grandiose. But I'm telling you, I can literally remember the last bag I had. It was a little rotten bag that I had found in the trash, and it had all kinds of holes in it, but it was my only possession I had. And I remember when my friend came to get me off the streets, and she's like, "Can I get you a new bag?" I was like, "Don't touch my bag." This is my bag. I don't know about your new bag, but I like my bag. Because I don't think people understand what you don't think matters to you, because maybe it isn't important to you, and I think that's just in life in general. But things are important to people, and people that don't have anything, it's even more important to. And so, just acknowledge somebody at the end of the day. If you don't have anything else to do, or you don't know what to say, or you don't know how to help, or you don't really want to, all that's fair. But you could just be like, "Hey, how's it going today?" "No, I don't have anything, but I just wanted to say hi." I mean, just simple. It's very simple to me, in my opinion. And nobody said hi to me on the street. I mean, nobody. Nobody.
Can you tell everybody what you're doing now?
Yeah, so, I've been sober 6 years and 4 months, I guess it is. I gotta tell, even saying that out loud still sounds so crazy. Like, wait, what? It's crazy. So anyways, I work in recovery. When I first applied for Chestnut, they were like, "Yeah, great lived experience," but I didn't know how to turn on a computer, so that wasn't helpful. So they told me to go through this program called AmeriCorps. It's kind of like recovery, Peace Corps kind of version of it. And so I did that, and I reapplied a year later, and God really had me right where I was meant to be, because now I get to work on this really cool project all by myself, and I partnered with libraries and shelters. I go to food pantries. I do outreach with the Collinsville Police Department, and I'm a felon. What? It's really a proud thing, because we're always told that we're defined by this time in our life and these mistakes that we make along the way, and it's just not true. We're not defined by anything. We're defined by the future and what we want to do with that. And so I am just so grateful that I get to go out and do this work, and I get to meet a lot of really amazing people, and I do my very best to do what I can to advocate and to fight for people and be the voice I wish I would have had. Thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you for that beautiful embrace. So thank you.
We can keep the other one.
Boop, boop, boop.
So let me say something that'll actually be inspirational. That was a joke. That landed with like a quarter of the audience, and the rest of you are like, "This guy's a monster. Let's haul him out into the road." So we do want to just add a little, put this in a little bit larger of a context. And so Shally from Kairos Center is going to come up with me, and we're going to talk a little bit. Yeah, let's hear it for Shally from Kairos Center. Okay. Because we're looking at, in that documentary, we're looking at a person's story that they're opening up to us vulnerably. But that documentary shows more than just one person's story. And I don't mean that there are many, many people who are going through that. I mean, it shows us the story of a community that is not responding justly, appropriately, or in a healing way to the stuff that millions of people are going through. And so we're like, it is inspirational Jess, I love you so much. I love that you gave us this view of your life, and I love that you gave us this view of the harshness of our society. Because it's not just a matter of like, oh, if you smile, then everything will change. It's like that's the beginning of rebuilding humanity and beloved community. And love will teach you always what to do next. And there's always going to be a next, but love will highlight that for you and let you know what that is. But I want to let the researcher and the one who has like a little bit more almost like national context, and you like something called data, I've heard. I don't know what that is, but I would love to learn what that is. So yeah.
Science is real. Well, my name is Shally, and also want to thank you, Jess. One of my mentors, Willie Baptist, who has been organizing poor and unhoused and dispossessed people for 50 years, I think more. I think he's older than when I first met him, and it was 50 years, 20 years ago. So anyway, who himself was unhoused also. What he reminds us of all the time is the brilliance and genius and power that is left on the streets, and yet when we can connect with that and learn from that, what more is possible? So thank you for being a beacon in this cruel and dark world. Thank you. So I do like data. I do. It helps to make some sense of this world. Not all of it. Data can be manipulated, which is terrible. But so I did want to say that something that the folks that tell us that it's circumstances or the folks that tell us that people choose to be unhoused and all this stuff, what they want us to believe is that what we're dealing with is a very small problem. And so I wanted to take one step back and remind us about the scale and scope of what we're talking about when we talk about being unhoused, but also just housing insecurity and the broad and wide economic insecurity that we're facing in this country. And so there are many manifestations of being unhoused. You could be, as we saw in Jess's documentary and Jess's story, on the streets. You could be, in a small piece of land. You could be in a car. You could be in someone's home, a friend or family member. You could be in a shelter. And if you added up all of these people who are facing just those manifestations, those aren't the only manifestations of being unhoused, we're still talking about probably 10 million people, maybe more. 10 million people. 10 million people. Thanks. I don't like microphones.
There's data on microphones and their usefulness.
I don't know that data. So at a minimum, we're talking about 10 million. But on top of that 10 million, there are tens and tens of more millions of people who are, just barely 1 or 2 emergencies away from losing everything. And how is that possible? I'm literally talking about half the country, 180 million people. 180 million people. And it's possible because there is no state in this country, there's no county in any state in this country where someone who's working full-time at a minimum wage job can afford a decent place to live, can afford a 2-bedroom apartment. And so nationally, you would need to earn over $33 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. Over $30 an hour. In Illinois, so that's nationally, the federal minimum wage is only $7.25, which is garbage. But in Illinois, where the minimum wage is $15 an hour, an adult and a child would need to have, you'd need to be earning almost $38 an hour to be able to just afford housing, but also food, transportation, healthcare, just all the basic needs of life, which you can't separate out from one another. If you have a housing problem, you have a healthcare problem. You have a clean water problem. You have all of these things are related. So in Illinois, you would need to earn, an adult with a child would need to earn at least $38 an hour to be able to get all of those things and still pay taxes. okay? And so that's how some of these things happen. So it means that a lot of low-wage workers are homeless. It means that when you add up all of these circumstances, when you add up the 10 million who are already in these, already facing these circumstances, and the ones who aren't maybe unhoused yet, but really not that far away, we're talking about, again, 180 million people. That is not a marginal or minority population. That is a majority population. A majority of people in this country are not doing okay. Truly, the least of these are most of us in this room, most of in this church, most of the folks in Alton, let alone the county. So when a camping ban targets unhoused people, what is it doing? It is attempting to isolate those dozens or hundreds or maybe a couple thousand people from that 180 million. It's saying focus on these few people that we see and not everyone else who we don't see. And there's a real danger in that. Because the truth is that many more of us are in much closer proximity to being unhoused than we are, than our kind of fragile reality lets us know, right, on a day-to-day basis. And especially we're in a moment where all kinds of programs are being cut, wages are not going up, right? Healthcare is getting more expensive, public education is going away, childcare, food, water, everything we need, transportation, that's all getting more expensive. And our illusion of security is fading. And at the same time, more and more resources, where are they going? To policing, to camping bans, to surveillance. We see the cameras on the corner of the streets, to jails and prisons and detention centers, military-grade weapons in our streets, military deployment abroad. You have to wonder, is all of that for a few thousand people who are unhoused? Is all of that for a few million immigrants? Or is it really for many, many more of us? You gotta wonder. So that's why it matters. That's why this table that we built today matters. That's why this beloved community that we have to fight for and practice building every day with the smallest kindnesses, and also like a deeper commitment to each other matters, because we have more in common with each other than we do with anyone in power, with any billionaire or that one trillionaire out there. And in fact, when one person's right to housing is violated, what that means is none of us have a right to housing. Okay, if the government can come along and say that because you're too poor to have a place to live, I'm gonna put you in jail, or you're gonna have to pay a fine that eventually is gonna land you in jail. If the government can do that because you don't have a house, then obviously that person's right to housing is being violated. But it means that I don't have that right either. None of us have that right. All that we have is a temporary status that can be taken away at any time. That's all that means. Rights are universal. Everyone has them or no one has them. Rights are indivisible. None of us are free until all of us are free. Let's say it. None of us
are free until all of us are free.
Let's say it again. None of us are free until all of us are free. And so we got to embody that truth. We got to live that out every single day. Because once we start doing that and committing ourselves to breaking bread, maybe we start to do bolder things together. Right? Maybe we start to actually take action together. We shut shit down. What else do? We fight for each other, not against each other. And once that, this beloved community is real, and it's not like a sweet kind of fairy tale thing. It is bold and it is ferocious for our people. And eventually we're going to win. So.
I think you should have just dropped it.
Oh,
No, that's all right. That's right. Yeah. No, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, so community, beloved community is the goal, but beloved community is also the way. You can't get to community without practicing community. You can't show people the world that could be without beginning to practice it together. And so we're going to sing a song now before Pastor Charles comes up to speak to us. And it's just a simple declaration. I think maybe a lot of you have heard it before, but it's just going to be, we will protect each other and we will be everything that we need. This is a declaration that we are making, right, today to one another and in this town and in all the places that people are going to go, that we're going to be a different kind of community until a different way of being community is the only way of being community here, okay? So we need the singers to come up because I'm going to grab the guitar. So let's stand up. Let's stand together. Church, come on, let's go. Woo!
None of us, none of us. Oh, yes. We will protect each other, and we will be everything we need. The good land, the wild waters, the whole sky is always on our side. Said we will protect each other, and we will be everything we need. The good and the wild water, the whole sky is always on our side. We will protect each other, and we will be everything we need. The good and the wild water, the whole sky is always on our side. We will protect each other, and we will be everything we need. The good and the wild water, the whole sky is always on our side. We will protect each other, and we will be everything we need. Everything we need. The good and the good land and the wild water, the whole sky. All of it is always on our side. Always on our side. We will protect each other, and we will be everything we need. We will. The good land. The good land. The wild water. The whole sky is always on our side.
Isn't it awesome to sing together? I love singing with you guys. Thanks.
I'm going to go up here so I can set down this thing. Before I get started, I want to do a little house cleaning. Is that okay? Is that okay? All right. So we planned this event, and we wanted to have it here in a church. And apparently, somebody had a problem with that. Somebody asked the question, why would you have this event, which is clearly political, right, in a church? Do you mind if I answer them? Because this work is sacred. Because Jess's story is sacred. She trusted us with it. It's sacred, right? This work, healing the sick, is sacred. Feeding the hungry is sacred, right? Clothing, it's sacred. Right? This is the sacred work that we are all called to. There's nothing more sacred than this work. And so, if not here, then where? So, if you see anybody or hear anybody asking the ridiculous question, why here, tell them, because it's sacred work. Amen? All right. We good? All right. All right, this is the piece I wrote. If you know me, I have 15 minutes. And if you've ever heard me preach, you know that can't happen in 15 minutes, right? And so I think the piece I wrote based on a sermon, I pray it meets you where you are. I pray it helps us to kind of center, if you will, around what happened today. Because what happened today is sacred. What happened today is extraordinary. And it ought to be the norm and not the exception. And so my prayer is today is just the beginning, right? And that we will all see each other again, and we will all do bigger and better things. Amen? All right. I keep saying amen. Let's move on. All right. I have to pray. God that is love, we thank you for this day. We thank you for love, mercy, and grace. We thank you for the gift of sacred community. Thank you for all the hearts and minds that are in this place who have seen each other, who have recognized the spark of God in each other, and made the choice to honor that. And I pray that as we continue in this work, that we would do that every day. See the spark of God in each of us and honor that. And may I, these words from my mouth, do the same. Amen. We are living in a moment of literary apostasy, wherein daily our elected officials betray the very meaning of words. A moment wherein regressive zealots extend a shallow and meaningless call to unity, not to heal but to hush, not to reconcile but to restrain, not to bring us together but to bring us to heal like a puppy. And across this nation, a dangerous idea is taking root that agreement with power and privilege is unity, and that silence is peace, and that conformity is community. But this is not new. History's seen this before. It's the same old pattern of empire practiced by Rome to systemize oppression by dividing the people, terrorizing the people, and offering counterfeit peace built on fear, comfort, and complicity, and calling the whole thing unity. And this is why today matters, because the people's fair is not empire's unity, it's beloved community's unity. Not unity built on silence or charity or performance, but unity built on neighbors seeing neighbors, on housed seeing the unhoused, on the pacified seeing the poor, and choosing each other over the lies empire tells us about each other. You see, every empire after Rome, including this one we're living in, followed the same script. And Lord knows the British mastered it, drawing borders that never existed, splitting tribes, punishing resistance, and rewarding a loyal class with just enough privilege. You know who we are. When empire crossed the Atlantic, the pattern took root in the American chattel slavery. Yet the spirit of beloved community, stowed away in the Declaration's promise, rose and pushed back through the Civil War and Reconstruction. But then empire struck back with Jim Crow and the strange fruit of black bodies beaten, castrated, and burned, and hung, too neatly described as lynchings. But we, the people, rose again on the back of Rosa and in the shadow of Emmett's coffin through the civil rights movement. And then empire struck back with mass incarceration. And yet again we rose through Black Lives Matter, Me Too, and the multiracial, multi-ethnic, my goodness, gender expansive, class-defying hope. But empire strikes back. Empire strikes back to make America imperial again. It is supremacy clothed in the garment of nostalgia. It is unity for the sake of exclusion. It is the craving for strange fruit. And as a result, we are a nation at war with itself, and it's anything but civil. We are divided, red versus blue, white versus black, and the rich get richer on poor people's backs. We are divided, colonizers' kin versus the descendants of slaves and Africans. We are divided, the descendants of immigrants once seeking the shore, now standing on the threshold and closing the door. We are divided, Christian nationalism versus Christian discipleship, Wall Street versus Main Street, and veterans arrested for sleeping on the streets. We are divided, urban versus rural, and it makes me want to holler because we all got friends in low places. Empire counts on these divisions to keep the poor from organizing, to keep the unhoused from trusting one another, to keep those suffering from believing they have power. But today, at the People's Fair, we practiced a different way. We refuse to divide and conquer. We refuse to be what they told us to be. We created a space for neighbors to breathe, to rest, to look at and upon each other, to see each other, and to remember that our survival is tied together and that unity is a matter of survival. You see, the way it works, Bill, is empire ranges the world into three classes: the glorified who benefit, the pacified who consent to it, and the crucified who suffer under it. And the danger of living in empire is forgetting to ask, where do I stand? Am I guarding my comfort and selling out my truth? Or am I standing with the crucified where Jesus stands, where the prophets stand, where the Spirit stretches out a healing hand? Where do I stand in this? Because empire doesn't just divide the land, it demands that we choose our place in it. And tonight we choose the side of the crucified. Tonight we choose the side of courage, truth, and grace. That's why this fair was never about helping the helpers feel helpful. It was never about spotlighting organizations or providing who's doing the most or proving who's doing the most. Today was about standing with the crucified, standing with our neighbors experiencing homelessness, poverty, exclusion, and building a community where those who suffer are centered, honored, and empowered. Sarah, somebody had the nerve to ask me, why are you so angry? I said, I'm angry because James Baldwin was right, not white, but right. But James Baldwin was right, and he told the truth. To be black and conscious in America is to live in a constant state of rage. We are angry because we still get twice the bad and half the good. Angry because Trayvon Martin was killed 56 years after Emmett Till and still didn't receive any justice. Angry because we are 13% of the nation's population and 33% of the inmates. Angry because Paul Manafort got a slap on the wrist for 8 felonies and Eric Garner got choked to death for selling loose cigarettes. Why are we angry? That's easy. The real question is, why do we still love America? Because our anger is born out of love. See, when you love something and somebody hurts it, it makes you angry. It's the love of our children that makes us angry. It's the love of our people that undergirds our anger. It's the love of our neighbor that undergirds our anger. We are angry because somebody's got $1 trillion and somebody can't afford a place to lay their head. angry because I'm angry because I was told as a little boy that the truth, that the American dream was a possibility for everybody. And I grew up in a neighborhood where there were boys smarter than me, faster than me, in a whole lot of ways better than me, who had no shot at getting out. Not because of personal failings, but because the system didn't make room for them. And yet we still love because we believe in the possibility. We believe that we can fix what is broken. We believe that there is room at the table for all. We believe that there is enough resources for people to have, amen. The problem isn't that we don't have enough to feed the needy. The problem is we don't have enough to satisfy the greedy. Yet and still we love the possibility of this nation because we see the beauty in it. I see it right here today. I've not had more hope than I have right here, right now, today as I look at you. The rage that we have is what love sounds like when love refuses to give up. And we are angry because we still believe, angry because we still love, and angry because we refuse to be misunderstood. And that same love is why we gather today, because our neighbors deserve more than charity, because they deserve community, they deserve agency, they deserve a moment that cannot be bought off, divided, or pacified. And the people's fair is an act of love, love that refuses to give up on the poor, refuses to give up on the unhoused, refuses to give up on the world that could be. Heaven and history are watching and asking, where will we stand? Because there is no sideline and no sanctuary in this war. Bell Hooks reminded us that domination creates communities of complicity before it creates communities of resistance. So again, I ask, where will we stand in this moment when leaders push lies and the meaning of freedom and justice is betrayed, in this moment when the house of 435 waivers like Ahab's court, voices parroting power and coming up short, in this moment when religious leaders call for peace without justice, what King named the quiet of plantation, in this moment where empire gives us three choices: stand with the glorified who benefit, stand with the pacified who consent, or stand with the crucified who suffer through it. But when the Spirit moves, everything shifts and another choice emerges. The Spirit calls us out of the roles empire assigns, out of the corners where fear has pushed us, out of complicity and into community where the empire isolates, the Spirit gathers. Where the empire terrifies, the Spirit emboldens. Where the empire pacifies, the Spirit ignites a people who refuse to bow. Watch this. The Spirit met a discouraged group of disciples behind locked doors, scattered, scared, and silenced. But the Spirit filled the house, and then it filled them, and then it pushed them out into the streets. And then suddenly they were speaking to the very people empire tried to divide: the Prometheans, the Medes, the Egyptians, the Libyans, the Romans, the Arabs, and Peter, the one who ran, not that one, the one who denied, the one who stood up in the same city that crucified Jesus, and he preached like his tongue was on fire. Because the Spirit didn't fall to make us comfortable, the Spirit fell to make us courageous. And that same Spirit is moving right now. The same Spirit in Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, the same Spirit in Sojourner Truth and Crispus Attucks, in Ella Baker and Fannie Lou Hamer, in Ruby Bridges and Rosa Parks, the same Spirit in Nina Simone and Thurgood Marshall and Frankie Muse Freeman, the same Spirit in Markham, Malcolm, and Huey, the same Spirit moved. And when that Spirit moves, we break isolation, seeing each other, hearing each other, standing with each other, refusing selective compassion. When the Spirit moves, we build beloved community, sharing resources, practicing justice, living Ubuntu I am, because we are. Empire may strike back, but the Spirit always strikes first. It always strikes last, and it always strikes true. Because when the Spirit moves, A people united will never be defeated. And that's what we practice today. A community meal where we share it as equals, not givers and receivers, not servers and the served, but neighbors at one table. A resource fair that gave people room to breathe, not to be managed. A gathering where the people were not props, but protagonists, where the unhoused were not an audience, but the authors of a world that we were building together. I want to close with this thought. In 1967, summer was known as the long, hot summer because there were more than 150 racial uprisings, even right here in Alton and East St. Louis. The spirit was moving. Black people were fighting back in the face of police brutality, poverty, and systemic racism. Yet Louis Armstrong insisted on recording this song, What a Wonderful World. So much so that the industry and the studio leaders said, no, Louis, you can't sing that song. It's 1967 and the country's on fire. That's tone deaf, Louis. You can't sing that song. And Louis said, I'm singing that song. And so he snuck off to Vegas and he rented, anybody know this story? And he rented a studio and he put together a band and they began to record the song and What a Wonderful World. And when the studio heard, they sent thugs to stop them and they ran and they went and they tried to beat down the door and Louis had the band bar the doors so they could sing this song in the midst of the world on fire in 1967. And you might ask, what's wrong with Louis? Why is he trying to sing this song in 1967 when the world's on fire? What's so wonderful about this world? You might ask. Well, Louis was born in 1901. And Louis had seen the worst we could do to each other. And he had seen the First World War and the Second. He had seen the Great Depression and the Spanish flu. He had seen all we could do. Over 1,400 lynchings in his lifetime. Louis had seen the worst we could do to each other. Why would he want to sing this song? Because he had also seen World War I come to an end and World War II come to an end. And he had seen us survive the Spanish flu. And he had seen anti-lynching laws passed. And he thought to himself, what a wonderful world. Darkness can do its best. It can come in all kinds of forms and come and push and push and push. But what a wonderful world, because when the Spirit moves, that darkness has to step back. And I'm convinced today that that same Spirit's alive today. I felt it outside at that table. I felt it in here when Jess was talking. And I am convinced that when the Spirit moves, a people united can never be defeated. I am convinced when the Spirit moves, a people divided can never be defeated. We are the resistance, y'all. We are the remnant. And none of us are free until all of us are free. None of us are free until all of us are free. One more time, none of us are free until all of us are free.